All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day. Welcome to our daily market commentary. Wednesday mornings, hump day, as they would say. I want to thank you all for joining us on this beautiful morning. We're seeing a little bit of movement today. NASDAQ is up about 40, Dow's down about 60, and the S&P is basically flat. So those of you guys that are coming regularly, welcome. Glad to have you back. Do me a favor, if you would, throw a like, throw a comment, share the link with others so they see that we are doing the live session. And we'll get started. Liz, thank you for asking about the hurricane. It's not affecting me, but certainly keep the people of the Texas, Louisiana line in your prayers, because it looks like it's going to be a wallop. Category 4, I think, is what they just upgraded it to. And I'm just on the outer bands, assuming I'm going to lose power tomorrow. Justin's going to fill in our live trade room. So I'm assuming a loss of power and all that. We're supposed to get tropical storm force winds, but shouldn't be too bad here. So, all right, let's go ahead and get going. Let me go ahead and shrink my face so that you guys can, see the screen, because certainly my face is not what you tune in to see in the morning. Like I was told a long time ago, my mother said I have a face for radio. All right, let's go ahead and get started on the S&P. So yesterday we had a little level here on this wick over wick area in the S&P, and that was a market close area. And one of the things we talked about was that's a pretty weak zone, coming into it, just based on the time of day. We did come a little bit below there before then rallying there at the end of the day. But unfortunately, we didn't really even have a great profit zone up here because of this opposing area of supply. But now what am I looking at for today? Well, we go back to our standing breakout trade. Now, those of you that are regular viewers, if you will, we have a standing breakout above the all-time high. And we're getting some pretty good basing here where it might make sense. If you take a long above that all-time high and you take the breakout, where does your stop have to get placed? Okay. Ooh, Dennis, that hurts, man. Could be looking at a mirror. You're talking about me looking in a mirror. No, I'm just kidding. So where our stop has to go below the most the most recent pivot, right? Our stop has to go below the most recent pivot. Well, our most recent pivot in this case would actually be fairly tight. It would be right here. So that would be our most recent pivot that we would be looking at in here. So you've actually got what is a fairly tight stop for a breakout, if indeed this occurs. Now, I'm usually a little bit wary about breakouts occurring right at the open, but I think we may see a little bit of a run from there, and with an opportunity for price to go higher. Now, how much? Yeah, this would be the Globex low, and so there's also the chance that we don't break out above there. We actually pop below the Globex low, and if we get below the Globex low, you've got a little 15-minute area here that might serve as a demand zone for a reversal. I don't love it. I like it. I don't love it, and the reason I don't love it is because I think that these two lower wicks are a bit of a retest of this area right here. Okay? George, listen, anytime you're quoting George Carlin, Dennis, in the morning, it's a good day. I'm showing my age by talking about George Carlin as my favorite comedian. But all right. So that would be the area to look at for a potential reversal. Like I said, I like it, don't love it if we come down below. Because I know a lot of people look for Globex traps, right? You're looking for a Globex trap. And for those of you unfamiliar with the term Globex trap, what you're looking for is an opportunity to get long below the Globex low, or an opportunity to get short above the Globex high. Now, in this case, if we do get above the Globex high, which would be right here, it actually puts us right at this little, area, which was a prior pivot. But I believe that we've probably run through most of the sell orders that are up in here, and there's a chance for price to continue to rally higher. So that's the level that I'm looking at for this morning that I think makes the most sense in the ES. Moving over to the NASDAQ, and we're going to see a similar picture in the NASDAQ. Now, NASDAQ, we had a breakout area set up in here. above 11,694. We've gotten a nice run out of that zone. So anybody who took the long breakout, hopefully you guys were able to catch that and get a little bit of a run. We had a little bit of basing there in front of the level with these couple of candles that made that accessible to take. If you didn't take it, I'm certainly okay with that. It was definitely an afternoon session, and if we come back to that zone, right? If I put that line back on the chart, if we come back right into here, morning Olsey, good to have you. If we come back right back into there, if we get a pullback into that region, you could also have an opportunity for a long at a pullback right here at 11,669 by 11,651. That to me is a pretty clean zone. Decent time of day. It's a bit of a rally-based rally. And the reason I call it a rally-based rally, now it's technically a rally-based rally above a pivot low. And the reason that it's a rally-based rally above a pivot low is because if we step back to think about it, this circle right here, this was a rally where price rallied all the way up to here and then dropped all the way down to here. So if you think about it, between here and here, that's a move down, and then we rallied back up. So this is a move up and then a pivot down and then a pivot back up, followed by basing and then a rally. So when we think about what happens inside the candles, we're looking at a rally-based rally above a pivot low. Now, if I see that on a 15-minute chart, it might be a little bit easier to spot, right? Where we have this drop, this rally, and then a move higher. So it's a little bit easier to spot on that 15-minute chart, and I think still a pretty clean zone and an opportunity to get long on a pullback. Now, where am I getting short? Where am I getting short? Well, there actually is an opportunity to get short. Ooh, that's not the drawing tool I wanted. There's an opportunity to get short below right here and play it from here to here. Now, the reason I drew that line is mostly because of this pivot right there, right? So this pivot right here tells me that was clear price rejection, right? Clear price rejection, old resistance right there. And that was the old resistance formed at the open. Well, that old resistance in the Globex served as new support right there at the European market open, right? So we had old resistance acting as new support at the European market open. You could, if we get some basing in here, justify an opportunity to short from here down to here. Now remember, we don't tug on Superman's cape, we don't spit into the wind, and we don't short an all-time high. So I'm not saying that we're going to just try to pick a top, right? We don't want to just pick the top. What we want to do is give the market a reason to get a short by basing sideways in here, and then we would be able to get in. And that's ultimately what I'm looking for is as a better way to play from here down into here. Does that make sense for everybody as far as what we would look at for a short? I know there's a little bit of a delay, so type it in the chat box as soon as you hear me say that. But hopefully that makes sense, because I don't want to try to pick the high, but with a bit of basing, I can take intraday shorts for price coming back down. So that's to me, a decent setup. Now, if we don't get basing, and if we cut right through it like a knife through butter, good. If we cut right through it like a knife through butter, such as this, then I'm going to want to really wait for price to come into here, and I'm not going to want to take a reversal short like the retest of that move if we break right through that line. All right, the Russell. So in our Russell, very similar picture in our Russell that we had to the S&P, where we'd identified a pretty decent 15-minute level yesterday. The market came just below that area and then rallied up off of it. Now, we did come back to, kind of this pivot area in here, but in my mind, your stop was right below this pivot here, and so it was a little bit of a stop out, unfortunately. You didn't get even much play. We did have, once again, though, basing in front of the level. So what is, if we talk about the three letters that the basing below the level indicates, that should tell us, okay, hey, give it some thought, because we definitely had a fair amount of basing in front of the level on this case, and that would be our kiss of death. And so now on my 4-hour, if I look at this, remember our 4-hour is determined to tell me, am I a buyer or am I a seller? So when you look at this 4-hour, what is it telling you right now? Okay. So when I look at this, when I look at a 4-hour like this, I know what it's clearly telling me. Right? When I look at a 4-hour like this, I know what it's clearly telling me. When I look at a 4-hour like this, I know what it's clearly telling me. When I look at a 4-hour like this, what is it telling me as far as, am I a buyer or am I a seller? Right? Because it's definitely telling me something. It's just telling me that I should probably sit on my hands, right? It's telling me that it doesn't make sense to go in and try to fight and look for a bunch of reversal trades in here, because these are very, very tough markets to trade. I call this tough sledding. Now, you will find reversal opportunities in here. Yeah, it's telling me it's very sideways. You'll find reversal opportunities in here, but you're going to find them on a smaller time period chart. And on that, yes, it's sideways, slightly downwards on that range. And when I look at this on a smaller time period chart, you do have a decent little area here that could be a bit of a reversal, provided that we don't get basing coming into that zone. However, in between there, yeah, it actually may not be a bad idea to sell an iron condor on here on the Russell, Jay. And it may actually not be a bad. I frankly don't ever look at the Russell for an iron condor, but if we just look at the pure rut itself, if you just look at the pure rut, you might get a decent, 15.25, 16.10. You might be able to get a couple of decent credit for that. If I throw, the only downside of that is if I throw my volatility on there, my IV range, it's a little bit high. So, yeah, boss, I like that. Not worth my time on that trade. Save the dry powder. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's going to tie up some buying power, but there's a lot of people that would look to that as those that are pure credit spread traders. The iron condor might actually make sense. I hadn't even thought about the iron condor and the Russell. I look at it on the S&P, that Monday, Wednesday, Friday expiration on the S&P. For those of you that look at that Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the S&P, that I think is worth looking at. You'd want to look below some of these pivots for today. And then looking at the Dow. Now the Dow's down about 54 points. There was a bit of an announcement that the Dow was going to release new formulations, right? Companies coming out of the Dow and going in. ExxonMobil coming out of the Dow. What? Just the sign of the times is what I told a very good friend of mine. But when I look at the Dow, we looked at this Sunday night, and Sunday night we looked at a breakout. And unfortunately, we didn't get any basing in front of the level to give us the true breakout trade. And that's really where this blue line comes from. So this blue line was a potential for a breakout long. We didn't get the basing. However, we did get a nice retest of the area. And remember, if you don't get the basing and price breaks through, look for the retest of that area for a rally higher. Now, that line just still happened to be here, and we bounced off of that area yesterday. So if we come back closer to here, I think that you have if you're going to look at a breakdown, this actually is setting up for a pretty decent breakdown below 28,066 with a target of like 27,953. So it's not a super huge move, but I think you've got an area right there that would make for a pretty good target. Now we've got a wick over wick demand area right there. We also have this level here. I like the wick over wick demand area much better, and the reason this one I don't like as much is just because it's an overnight Globex session. But if you want to, take some basing here for a short down into this 27,975 region, pick yourself up 50 points in the S&P. I would not be shocked if we got a 50-point move down. you know, and that would be 50 points from our breakdown point, which would be another 100 and something points down. So that'd be like a 200 point down day. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like that if we get the quality basing. If we don't get the basing, then we're in trouble, right? So think about that. We've got, if I look at my equities and I just put all 4 of them on the screen, we got a tale of 2 cities, all right? And I'm using that term. I'm calling it a tale of 2 cities. We have a potential upside breakout in the S&P, right? Potential upside breakout in the S&P and a potential downside breakout in the Dow. How often do we see that happen? Almost never, right? That happens almost never. That is a very, very strange occurrence when I've got both of those setups at one time. Now, as far as the Nasdaq, we also have a potential that if we base a move down through here. So we're looking at a couple of different setups. Today, I think that some of these breakouts make more sense than some of the individual reversal trades. Let me zoom in on that a little bit closer for those of you guys that take screenshots. Let's see. Can't the Globex level be confirmation because of the excess points to the left? Nathaniel, which market are you talking about on that one? I've got all 4 of them up at the moment, and I know there's a bit of a delay, so if you would just let me know. Also, would you say that's a divergence? I would say that's a divergence, and it's a divergence just simply based on the fact that it's the makeup of the different indices, right? It's what's made up in each of the different indices in these. Now, I will say this, the Dow Jones, you know, if we look at the components of the Dow, there's some more of them that are taking some bigger hits, and that's what's really causing that to come down. All right, so can't the Globex level be confirmation because of the excess points to the left? Oh, you're talking about this one right here, Nathaniel. I'm sorry. This one from Sunday evening, I think. You're talking about this zone right there. 27,938 on the 1 hour. Yeah, this area right here. So it certainly can be a confirmation entry, Nate. No doubt. You can use this as a confirmation entry. I think that the level below it is a significantly better level, only because it's a wick over wick above a pivot low right in the market, right when the U.S. markets are open. But it's certainly a valid level that I'm okay if you want to give this a run. But I definitely agree, if you're going to take it, make sure that it's a confirmation style trade, especially if we get any basing coming into that level. I think it makes one heck of a good target for a short here, but I think you certainly could still take it as a confirmation level. Now remember, for those of you guys that are new, and this is maybe your first time or one of your first time watching, if you see a solid line, that means that this is a 60-minute limit entry. If you see a dashed line, that means that it's a 60-minute confirmation entry. That's on green. And then if you see a purple line, that means that it's a 15-minute level, right? So solid line being limit, dashed line being confirmation. I only use 60-minute and 15-minute charts to identify these zones. And then a blue line is a breakout. Okay, so blue line is breakout, green is 60-minute, purple is 15-minute, solid is limit entry, dashed line is confirmation entry. Okay, so that's all of my equities levels for the day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share this grid. I share my grid for those of you that are on the Thinkorswim platform. I'm going to copy the link into the chat window. For those of you that are on the Thinkorswim platform, you actually can get this copy of this and just open it up in Thinkorswim, and you'll have access to my exact lines and where I put them and where I drew them. If you're not a Thinkorswim user, that's okay. Take heart. You can still utilize the lines. You'll just, when you click on it, you're going to get a screenshot, if you will, of where those lines are. So in case you guys have never used those, I want to make sure that you know that they are still there for you to use. All right. Next market. Sorry, I'm trying to do 3 things at once over here. Yes, Sean, and a gold line would tell me that it's a flip level. It's been a zone that has been flipped. So next market, let's look at crude oil. So in crude oil yesterday, we had the potential breakout line here that we left in place, and I still think that's a valid breakout line. Now I will say I'll be interested to see if the hurricane causes any rise in price. There's definitely a production slowdown in oil, but there's so much excess inventory that I don't know that we'll see a big rise in price in oil because of the hurricane. A lot of selling pressure in these last couple of candles, a lot of indecision in these last couple of candles that we've seen on the 4-hour time period. So on the 1 hour, if I was to look for a breakout, I would certainly still need basing to happen right around here. Right? I'd still need basing to happen somewhere in this area in order for breakouts to be valid. If I don't get basing inside of this distance, this zone, then a breakout would not be a valid trade. I would then take the reversal. If we come back down into 42.23, you've got another opportunity for a breakout below these two lows that we had in here. Now, these are the same lines that I had on yesterday's daily market commentary. Looking at a 15-minute for a potential reversal trade, this was yesterday's big reversal where we kind of flipped directions. We are coming close to that level. And if you want to take that, you've got to take the whole pivot. Now, why do I say take the whole pivot? Yeah, inventory coming out at 9:30. Great point, Dennis. So make sure you're aware of the inventory as it comes out. Although, and if the inventory is anywhere lower than what they would anticipate, I think that's where you'd see a big pop. And the reason for that is because I think we're staying down on price because the market has a lot of pent up supply, right? There's a lot of pent up supply in there, and that's why we see that we're not getting a pop through there. If I look at this wick over wick area right here, that to me is its own zone, but my stop has to go below this pivot anyway, and it's right there at the market open. So that's why I'm kind of putting my lines around both areas. Now, that's a 15-minute chart, and when I put my line around that 15-minute chart, yeah, I would take on that one, it looks like the whole zone in my case, but being as that's a 15-minute chart, I've got to put this in purple, and my risk is going to be this much. So this is my risk. Well, here's a 1-to-1 reward to risk ratio. Here's a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio. And I don't, yes, I can do the math, but it's really easy just to, draw two lines. What does that tell me about my basing currently in front of the level? All right. What is that basing before the level when I look at my zones and my areas? Go ahead and look at what it tells me. Because it definitely gives me some indication. Yeah, Liz, that's a good word. It's a problem, right? A bit of a problem. And so when I'm looking at that, what I want to see is I want to see more than 2-to-1 reward to risk, or at least 2-to-1. Now, can I still take 1-to-1 trades? Sure you can. You just got to make sure that you're willing to take the risk. I'm not. And I don't feel like, especially with my 4-hour, being, it's still in an upward trend, and my 4-hour, though, has been stifled by this resistance up here. I think you're better on the breakout area if that breakout area happens. Okay? All right, gold. So in our gold level, now gold we have obviously lost our momentum to the upside, and we're actually putting in, some lower levels. On a daily chart of gold, we've actually got a clear lower swing high. Now, the reason I bring up a daily chart, and I don't normally talk about daily charts when I do the DMC, is because I'm looking, not as much at swing trades, but more at day trades. The fact that I've got a lower swing high here has not changed my overall daily trend direction. It's just stunted the momentum of my overall trend direction on the daily. technically I've not broken it. I'm not broken it until I get below this pivot. Now, once I get below that pivot, I would by definition have a lower swing high and a lower swing low. So having both the lower swing high and the lower swing low would tell me that, okay, we're definitely going to continue to fall. And so we've got actually a little demand area there at that pivot low. And I think that's actually a pretty good demand level. The downside of this demand level is that it's pretty wide relative to the amount of risk that we would take of what's up in here, right? And so, yeah, it actually sets up better for a potential breakdown trade on there, and we're actually just above. If you wanted to take a breakdown trade out of here, I wouldn't be mad at you. We actually have put up a decent little reversal spot right there. Where you might see price come back up into this region. So keep an eye on this one. If we come back up into here in the next little bit, we could get a very small little opportunity there for a day trade that could run down a little bit. All right. All right, next, let's go ahead and take a look at nat gas. So when I look at nat gas, what am I seeing here? So when I take a look at the 4-hour, what is my overall 4-hour trend direction? Okay, so my overall trend direction on here clearly is very much up, right? Clearly very much to the upside on our 4-hour chart. When I go to the 1-hour, we had a breakout level, right, above this region. The breakout gave us a little bit of a run, and now we've got supply up above us. Well, I'm not going to be willing to short this supply. This supply, to me, I'm going to be much better off waiting for a confirmation in any of these because our 4-hour trend is so strong. I do like some of these demand levels below me. The problem is we've just not been able to come back to any of these demand levels. I like this one a lot. To me, this is a really good level. Formed at the European market, the London Open. Strong, strong move away. And that strong move away, I think, is indicative of the fact that there's a tremendous amount of demand. Now, when I look at this on a bigger time period, like a daily chart, I mean, our daily chart also, very, very strong move. When I look to the daily areas, I think there's a chance we make it all the way up to this gap fill area at 2.8. To me, that's the one that makes the most sense. Making it back to that 2.8 region would be the next level on the daily chart. So on the 1-hour, can we still take a breakout? Sure, breakout above here if we get quality basing. Yeah, yep, that's exactly right, Liz, with quality basing above there. All right. Copper. So in our copper level, we are seeing in my copper level, we've got a lower swing low right in there on the 4-hour. We've put in a little bit of basing on the 4-hour. Let's see if price drops below this 2.91 and we get price going a bit lower. Because if price goes a bit lower, we could see us make it down to this 2.868. And I think that's actually a nice little setup if we get quality basing. When I look at the 1-hour time period on here, there's a really strong move down up here that we're approaching, which is an obvious supply zone, but sometimes the most obvious supply zones are the best ones. If you wanted to just look at, if you just wanted to look at taking the wick over wick area, you can, right? The wick over wick that exists right here is a very clean level. Your stop, though, would still have to go above that pivot. The tightest your stop could be if you take that wick over wick would be just below the pivot right here at the wick of the leg in candle. Remember, when we place our stops above the wick of the leg in candle on the 15-minute chart or the pivot. And typically the pivot is going to give you a much better setup. We actually did a lesson on that in the DMC. I think it was on Friday we did a lesson on that. Yeah, that's actually very clean on the 30-minute chart, Joe. You're right. I don't normally use the 30-minute, but that wick over wick is clean on the 30. Joe, are you talking about this zone on the 30-minute chart right here? Because that's actually very clean as well. I don't normally use the 30-minute chart, so that one would not ever even pop up for me. I just like the wick over wick above there. Let's see. Calavani, you want me to look at Visa? I will look at Visa when I'm all done. I'm going to look at bonds and currencies first, if you would like. All right, so those are our commodities. Oops, that's not what. Oops, hitting too many buttons. Stop it. Charts. Okay. Let me share my grid. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's take a look at soy real quick. Honey Rose, thanks for joining us. Yeah, this is an online live trade room where any questions you want to ask about trading, feel free to put them in. So welcome and glad you're able to join us. So when I look at this soy levels on our 4-hour chart, we are seeing prices are rallying higher. And as prices have continued to rally a bit higher, we've got higher swing highs, higher swing lows. We're coming into what was a pretty clean area of supply, going all the way back to here. This is actually a really clean supply zone on the 4-hour. I don't normally look for zones on the 4-hour. We want to look at it on the 1-hour. Oh, thanks, Nate. I will definitely look at silver. And so if you want to take this supply, it has to be a confirmation because the trend is up. Well, I'm also basing below the level, which tells me why the heck would I use this at all? If I'm basing below the level and I've got an upward trend, it might make sense not to take this because it's just a bit too risky. If you want to take it, you can only do it as a confirmation. That would be my rules. On a pullback, obviously you've got a really nice gap fill level here. The gap fill would be the origin of a very strong rally. We would anticipate this would be an opportunity to buy on a return back into this region if we get that deep of a pullback. That deep of a pullback would be a pretty substantial pullback, and if we got down to here, it would indicate much slowing momentum on this move. Corn, similar picture in corn, except that our zone is not the gap. Our zone is the level below the gap in corn, right? In corn, our zone is the level below the gap, and the reason for that is because the gap didn't really have anything indicative of that move happening. It's just, it's almost like this is a ghost candle. Sounds spooky, doesn't it? It's almost like this is a ghost candle on the way up. And if you think about a gap as a ghost candle, right? A gap up is really, think about it as just a big green candle. If you were drawing this zone with this big green candle here, you wouldn't put it at the gap fill. You'd put it down here. And that's why I'm putting it a bit lower, is this area right here. Let's take a look at silver right quick. So looking at silver, we have, oh, you're right, that is a better breakdown in silver. Good gosh almighty, as my grandpa used to say. That's setting up for a pretty nice little breakdown in silver. I would love to see us get a little bit of basing here. Even if it's 1 or 2 candles, that would be enough basing. If you get basing in front of here, you've got a nice strong drop away. That's, to me, a really nice entry. If we just blow through that level, then you would look up here for a reversal if we blow through it. I don't know that I would take this reversal until that, but I think if we base, you've got a good setup, and if we blow through it, then you've got a decent reversal. Okay? A-Rock's Best says buy not. I don't know what that means. All right. So now we did have a supply level up here in the 15-minute, which the market just popped right through that area. And so I'm gonna remove that zone as obviously that one is no longer going to be valid. So I think that you've got a decent opportunity on the breakdown here. All right. Let's see here. Let's Let's get rid of it. Sorry, A-Rock's best. I don't know what buy not is, and you keep typing it in, so I'm going to have to move you. All right. So those are our levels in commodities. Any more questions on commodities before we move this over? I'm going to share this grid so you all have a copy of it. There you go. So you guys should all have a copy of the commodities grid. Let's move over to bonds and currencies. All right, so bonds and currencies. So starting here on the ZN, which is our 10-year note. So looking here at the 10-year note, we have a little bit of sideways, strong move down, created this area of supply yesterday. We got a decent rally, nearly back up to that level yesterday in the afternoon, but it didn't quite make it there. So knowing that, I have to then switch this to a confirmation, because we came close, but no proverbial cigar. We actually have set up what could be a decent little breakdown point here by bouncing off of it once and now basing at it a second time. And so it gets you in a little bit earlier than this potential breakout point. And this potential breakout point we just had here based on all that demand. So I'm going to remove that one and really look at this one. I think might actually be the better run. Next, the Aussie. So in our Aussie position, looking here at the 4-hour chart, what is our 4-hour chart telling us to do in the Aussie? So knowing what we know about our currency markets and really about any market, the 4-hour chart is chopping sideways. So if you were to give a diagnosis, type it in the chat box for me. If you were to give a diagnosis, would it be Aussie's telling me to be a buyer, the Aussie's telling me to be a seller, or the Aussie's telling me meh, right? If you were gonna really give a diagnosis, what would your diagnosis be? And knowing that above us we have some supply, right? We do have some really nice, clean hourly supply above us, as well as I have some breakdown potentials below this support line. I think it's actually, yeah, I'm going to go with the consensus, and I'm going to go with meh, right? Is there a trade setup? You bet there is. But with that 4-hour going sideways, it makes all of my probabilities a bit lower and a little bit harder to trade. Are there breakout trades? Yeah, there's breakout trades down below us. I think those are the best ones. The reversal trade that's up here could work out okay. I think ultimately what I'm more likely to see is basing inside of this level for price to break higher. I think that's what we're more likely to see. So, yeah, that supply, it's not a bad supply area. Matter of fact, it's a when you look at the structure of the zone, think about the structure of the zone. It was formed at a good time of the day. There's good structure. When I focus on the angle of the move away, you can't get much better than this, right? This is an 86-degree angle. If I just take the first couple of candles, that's a really nice strong move away. For me, it's anything greater than a 68-degree angle is going to give me a strong move away. I've got a fairly small amount of time in the level. The downsides to it, though, are that it was almost retouched, and that I've got a sideways trend. So is it worth the shot? Sure, it's worth a shot, but it's worth a shot as a confirmation entry. I would call this close enough for me to say that was a fairly close to being a touch. Yeah, Dennis, that's a good point. It very well could set up as a bull trap, because there will be a lot of buyers who get long when we get above this high. There will be a lot of buyers who get long when we get above this high. So I'm not removing the zone. I'm just making sure that you guys are all aware it's a confirmation zone. All right, now in the euro, yesterday in the euro, in looking at it, all right, I think I drew this line yesterday and don't remember why I drew it, because this is certainly not a breakout line. I don't like to remove lines from the charts, but this line is definitely not a breakout trade. Don says, isn't that sideways action filled orders? Well, Don, every market is, every price move is filled orders, right? If we think about it, every price is filled orders, but I really care about the unfilled orders, right? Don, what I care about are the unfilled orders. And my problem with these areas up here is when I think about unfilled orders, what I always think about is the unfilled orders that have been added to the queue or that have been canceled. Because sometimes you're going to have orders that were initially put in, but then they get canceled by all of these traders and these algorithms, and those orders that get canceled actually matter as well. So I think that while we had a good area here of supply, getting close to it and then moving away and then being sideways, I think you have a lot of traders that would say, you know what, instead of having my sell order up here, this is probably not a good use of my capital, and they may have canceled those sell orders, and that's why I think you get some weakness. So I'm not a fan of the high wick on the leg out candle on the Aussie, on this AD. So this area, yeah, that wick definitely makes it a little bit more suspect. When you go down to the 15-minute chart, Dennis, and look at that area, I'm actually still okay with it because the wick is inside of the 15-minute candle, and that's why I'm all right with it. Now, if that wick was a drop down here and then a rally back up and then a drop like it was 3 separate candles inside there, but the fact that it's still one candle on the 15 makes me all right with it. You're right. It's funny how when we think about unfilled orders, a lot of people look at these zones of supply and demand, right? And if we only look at zones of supply and demand, like this is an area of supply, and the traditional teaching around areas of supply, for those of you that may have taken an online course at an academy that teaches trading, they may have taught you a strategy around the fact that this is an area where we had unfilled orders and price moved away, and so we know for certain that there were no more willing buyers up here, but there still had to be willing sellers, and that would tell us that, you know, if it were a stack of orders on a table, that we would anticipate that there's still a big stack of sell orders left at this point. And while I completely agree with that sentiment, I 100% agree with the sentiment that at the origin of this move, there were no more willing buyers and there had to be willing sellers. I 100% agree with that. What it fails to account for is what happens after the move occurs. And it fails to account for the cancellation of orders, and it fails to account to the new orders that get added to the queue. There's no way for us to know what new orders are going to get added to the queue. All we can do is try to have the highest degree of probability where we think those orders would be. And so in looking at this, I think this is a really clean supply area, and we didn't come close to it for me to say, hey, a bunch of those orders have been canceled. So I still think that's a valid zone. On a 1 hour time period, we've actually had a really nice move away here just this morning in the last little bit. We might take a look at this area right in here later today. We're falling apart now in the euro. Euro's freaking dropping like a stone at the moment. I'm not sure what the heck's happening. But we're dropping pretty hard, pretty quick. Let me take a look at my equities real quick. I just want to take a look, see. Nope, still nothing there. No basing happening in front of this area here as of yet. Same thing in the Dow, still getting the basing. So just keep an eye on all of those. All right. Canadian dollar. So the Canadian dollar yesterday, we had looked at this supply level. This was a very clean wick over wick supply level. How many of you were able to catch that level off of yesterday's daily market commentary? Hopefully you got a nice little move away from that zone. If you're still in the trade, which by the way, there's nothing wrong with still being in the trade, now it's time to take your stop and move it to here. Take your stop, lock in some profit. Very good, Jeff. Sean, glad to hear that you were able to catch that. Take your stop, move some profit, knock it down into this region here, and that you're gonna lock in some nice little coin at that point. I think that for a target of that short, you've got a target of 75644, somewhere down in this region here, which is just above this area of demand. Now, if you didn't get that one, and you're still looking for a trade for today, looking at the 4-hour trend, our 4-hour trend is very sideways. So with our 4-hour trend being as sideways as it is, I'm going to look to a breakout below this line here. And theoretically, if we make it back up to this 15-minute zone here, you may get a little reversal at this 15-minute zone. Yeah, it's what moved the dollar. Core durable goods. All right. Great British Pound. Great British Pound. We are below our supply, above our breakout line, in an overall sideways price action with a huge double top slowing momentum pattern. Right. So I don't want to add anything to my trade ideas here, because nothing's going to make for a better trade than what we already have. We have a 15-minute level, which is inclusive of, which is really this one candlestick right here. And I think that level is still pretty clean, although if we base in front of it, it'll be much weaker. And then as far as demand below us, when I look for demand, I look below current price. So here's my current price. I look down and to the left to the origin of a strong rally. This is a level that's already been touched right in through here. So it's all a retest of this. This was the zone. The zone was this area here, and we have hit it and touched it twice. So I'm not going to add anything on my Great British Pound. And then the Japanese yen, we came up and we got this one in the overnight. So hopefully some of you guys were able to catch this one in the overnight. You've gotten a nice little move away. Once again, a pretty clean wick over wick below a pivot, where we got a nice touch and move away from that level. If you took that short, take your stop, move it to one of these regions up in here, 94.130, somewhere up in there. I'm going to leave that level in place, though, and switch it to a confirmation, since we just did a touch and go off of that zone. All right, let me share this grid with you. All right. So let's see. Somebody wanted me to look at Visa, I think it was. Was it Visa as the individual stock you wanted me to look at? So let me take a couple of minutes and look at Visa. If you're looking at Visa, I forget who wanted to look at Visa, but if I'm looking at Visa, I see that we've just broken out of a sideways price action. Prices are continuing to move higher. We are near the all-time high in Visa. Have not quite come to it yet. Roll, I hope that's a finger pointing up instead of a middle finger. If it's a middle finger, what did I do to you, man? Little bit of sideways, big move down. So we have some supply up here, and then we've got a potential reversal in this area that can happen right there. That's what is that? What's that upper number? $211 by $214. So we really tighten that up. You can make it 211.85 by 214. So technically that's a supply level, and if you wanted to take a short off of there, I wouldn't hate it. I don't like shorting an all-time high. I actually think this is a better chance to see a potential sideways pattern and a breakout. If you like this setup on Visa, I would wait for a pullback. I would wait for a pullback to a better. Well, thanks for coming, Mehmet. I appreciate it. If you like the pullback, wait for price to come back on an hourly chart, because the hourly chart I think actually gives you the better entry right there at 202.95 by about 201.93. I think that's a better hourly level that we can see in there. Let's see. Yeah, it's got a similar pattern. MasterCard has a similar pattern to Visa. I will tell you one that I've been a bit more bearish on recently, if you're talking about this sector, has been American Express. I've been a bit more bearish on American Express. AXP, and the reason I've been a bit more bearish on American Express is it's a very, very highly used tool by small business owners. Now, small business owners, while they're the lifeblood of our economy, have been getting their butts handed to them in this coronavirus incident. And I think that it relies a lot on not just business travel, but business expenses, right? Every small business owner has an American Express, and that oftentimes is their main line of credit. Well, when I look at something like that, I mean, look at what their they have 208, 203, 198, right? If we just go back more, just zoom in here a little bit. Go back more, 186, 184, 188, 232, 201, 207, 208, 203, 29 cents, right? I mean, that's a huge hit that they took on their normal earnings. And the stock didn't really take that much of a hit. It just didn't grow as expected. And relative to the overall market, if I throw a comparison to the S&P, look at its performance relative to the S&P, right? And so that's why I've been actually a bit more bearish on this stock. For those of you that are more of the bearish ilk, I think this is actually a pretty good stock to look for a potential bearish play for those of you that do trade options on those positions. We've actually had a couple of decent moves from some of our option plays this week. One of them that I was looking at this weekend was Etsy, which if we get up above this region here, I think you could see a nice run in Etsy. I actually like the fact that we came close to it and bounced down. I think that may be a decent one here. So, yeah, American Express is down a bit in the pre-market. So it's trading at 98.21 by 98.89. So keep on trucking down. So, all right. Last thing that I have for today is just a real quick reminder for all of you guys. I will not be doing the live trade room tomorrow. I normally do the live trade rooms for Traders Army members. However, due to the fact that there's a potential hurricane hitting Houston, my guess is that I will not have power and I will not have internet. And so Justin Krebs is going to fill in. For those of you guys that know Justin, he is an amazing instructor and a heck of a great guy. Mamet says, "What do you attribute this fall? I missed." I attribute this fall to the fact that from a fundamental standpoint, American Express is going to have some weakness, and from a technical standpoint, we've rallied back up to a little area of supply below a pivot high, where I think we could get a bit of a reverse down. So, Pia says, "I changed my trade station to toss and cannot figure out how to do a confirmation." So let me show you, Pia, very quickly. If you go to the trade tab, and let's say that I'm just going to use the stock. I'm going to buy the stock at 98.89. So what you do is way over here on the far right, Pia, there's a little cog, a little wheel there. And that wheel, if you click on it, it's called the order rules box. And down here where it says conditions, you can submit the condition when the stock trades, when you use the mark, when the stock trades greater than or less than or whatever to a certain threshold. And that is actually how you do conditional orders inside of Thinkorswim, which would then turn into confirmation entries because you'd use a stop limit order to execute that trade. Pia, if you want to learn more about that, let me show you a free website where you can get some more of that stuff. If you go to tradersarmy.com, underneath where it says more, or excuse me, under learn our on-demand courses, we have a ton of free trading videos, and in some of our free trading videos, we've got platform tutorials. So if you've just recently switched to Thinkorswim, here you go, Thinkorswim confirmation order entry with exit brackets. Here's a tutorial on where you can watch that. So if that's something that you want to watch, please feel free to do so. Remember that as a free member, you get access to all of these classes, and then as a pro member, you get access to all of these classes, including options courses. Hey, starting next week, just so you guys are aware, starting next week is our Dennis. They're decent. They're decent for futures, Dennis. They are not. I will say that the futures are not their strong point, primarily because of the margins required in futures. And I would say that the fills are not as yeah, they're about as good as TradeStation. Your fills in TradeStation and Thinkorswim are going to be basically the same. I've been using a little bit more of Infinity for some of that stuff. Infinity's charting is not the greatest. Their charting and their execution is not the greatest, but their fills are great and their margins are excellent. So one of the things I wanted to just make sure everybody's aware of, for those of you that are Traders Army members, starting September 9th is our first ever Wealth Essentials class. So please feel free to join us on Wednesday evening for our Wealth Essentials class. If you guys are not Traders Army members, feel free to take a look at the website, use the promo code TRADEUP, and get 60% off your first month. So, I'm sorry, Trader60. Trader60 is the promo code. So I'll type that in the chat box if you guys want to get 60% off your first month, and we'd love to have you. So that's all I have for today, everybody. I hope you guys have an absolutely amazing day. I appreciate you joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning. I will talk to you all soon. Peace out. See ya. Perfect timing.